Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? This time we're all about helping you year 8s at Seoul Foreign School prep for that big IMYC relationships exit point.
Yeah, Unit 4 is coming to a close.
It's a big one. We've got your Unit 4 newsletter plus some extra prep notes,
So we're going to break it all down.
so you can totally rock this exit point.
Now this unit's all about how every individual thing is affected by other things.
Right, it's like this giant web of connections.
Exactly.
And you got to show you can see those connections across like all your subjects.
From art to science and everything in between.
It can be kind of mind-blowing when you start to see it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so first up the newsletter.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
Always packed with dates.
And deadlines. Don't want to miss those.
Right. March 4th, you've got the Learning Walk.
That's your chance to show off what you've been working on.
Get some feedback.
Yeah, it's like a sneak peek before the big show.
Then March 13th and 14th.
More conversations.
Ooh, yeah, those could be intense.
But so valuable. You get to chat with your teachers, your families, about your progress.
It's like a progress check to make sure you're on the right track.
Exactly.
And then few spring break.
Ah, yes, a well-deserved break.
March 24th to 28th.
Time to recharge those batteries.
For sure. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right back to the unit.
Because each subject is tackling this relationships theme in such cool ways.
Oh, yeah. Some really creative approaches.
Like art, you're building an assemblage.
A 3D collage, basically, to represent how relationships shape your identity.
Whoa, that's deep.
It's about making those abstract ideas into something you can actually see and touch.
Turning thoughts into things.
Exactly. And then in English, you've got The Giffer by Lois Lowry.
Oh, I remember that book.
Powerful stuff, right?
Yeah. It really makes you think about how your relationships define who you are.
Your choices, your values, everything.
It's kind of scary how much influence other people have on us.
It's true, but also pretty amazing when you think about it.
Okay, so we've got art, we've got literature.
Now let's get a little more technical, shall we?
Ooh, yeah, computing with Miss Musshorn.
She's got you exploring machine learning and AI lab.
Now that sounds intimidating.
It's actually not as complicated as it seems.
But like, what even is machine learning?
Well, think about it this way. Have you ever noticed how...
Oh, wait, let me guess. Like how Spotify recommends new music based on what you already listen to?
Exactly. Or how Netflix suggests shows you might like.
Or how Instagram knows exactly what ads to show me.
That's all machine learning in action.
So basically, those algorithms are picking up on the relationships between different pieces of data.
To predict what you want to see or hear next.
Wow. So it's like teaching machines to see patterns and make connections just like we do.
Yep. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, actually is. And in AI Lab, you get to build your own machine learning model.
Talk about getting hands-on with this relationships concept.
For sure. Okay, now what about design? I know you're building a wooden table.
Yes, with Mr. Hammerberg.
Now, where's the connection to relationships there? It's just wood and nails and glue, right?
Not so fast. Think about the relationship between the design of the table and the person who's going to use it.
Oh, I see. You have to consider their needs, their preferences.
Their lifestyle, even their height.
So even something as practical as building a table is all about relationship.
Absolutely. And speaking of connections, let's travel back in time to the 1920s and 30s.
Humanity's time.
Yeah, you'll be exploring the Harlem Renaissance, the stock market crash.
All that jazz.
But not just as isolated events, you'll be digging into the relationships between them.
How one thing led to another.
Exactly. It's about seeing history as a web of interconnected events, not just a bunch of random facts.
So like a domino effect.
Yeah, one event knocks into another, and so on.
Whoa, I never thought of history that way.
It's a whole new perspective, and it helps you understand how the world works today.
Makes sense. Okay, on to math with Miss Lloyd.
He's all about shapes and angles and...
Ugh, math. Sometimes it feels so abstract.
But trust me, it's more relevant than you think.
Okay, I'm listening. How does math connect to relationships?
Well, think about geometric shapes and angles. Those relationships are crucial in architecture engineering.
Even building that table in design class.
Exactly. Understanding those principles helps us create structures that are both beautiful and functional.
So it's not just about numbers. It's about understanding how things fit together, how they relate to each other in space.
That's the beauty of math. It's a language that describes the world around us.
Okay, you're actually making me kind of excited about math now.
That's the spirit. Now let's move our bodies and talk PE.
With Mrs. Midley.
She's got you designing a training program that considers both physical and mental well-being.
Which is a super important relationship. I know I feel way better mentally when I'm physically active.
Absolutely. And you'll also be exploring teamwork in striking and fielding games.
Oh yeah, like baseball and cricket.
Those games are all about collaboration and strategy.
You got to communicate, anticipate each other's moves.
And work together towards a common goal.
It's like that saying, teamwork makes the dream work. Okay, what about religious education? What kind of relationships are we talking about there?
Well, Mr. Lazianu is guiding you through the resurrection of Jesus and its significance for Christian relationships.
With God, the afterlife.
Right. It's about understanding how faith and spirituality can shape our values and beliefs.
And how those, in turn, influence our relationships with others.
Exactly. It's a fascinating perspective on this whole idea of interconnectedness.
Definitely. Okay, last but not least, science with Mr. Martin.
He's taking you deep into the world of photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis. How does that connect to relationships? I thought it was just about how plants make food.
It is about that, but it's also about understanding the incredibly complex relationships between plants and their environment.
Like they need sunlight and water and even other organisms to survive.
Exactly.
It's like that symbiotic relationship between corals and zooxanthellae we talked about earlier.
Perfect example.
It's amazing how even something as simple as photosynthesis is part of this giant web of relationships.
It all comes back to that core idea. Every individual thing is affected by other things.
Wow. So we've gone from art assemblages to machine learning to the resurrection of Jesus.
And somehow it all connects.
It's mind-blowing. Okay, so we've covered the newsletter, but we're not done yet.
We still have those prep notes to dig into.
Yeah, those offer some really helpful guidance on how to approach the exit point itself.
Think of them as your roadmap to success.
Let's see what nuggets of wisdom we can unearth.
Let's do it. So first things first, those prep notes really hammer home the importance of those interdisciplinary connections.
Right, like it's not enough to just summarize what you learned in each class.
Exactly. Gotta go deeper. Think like a detective, piecing together clues from different subjects to build your case for how relationships are like the driving force behind everything.
So we're talking about more than just showing what you know. It's about weaving it all together into something bigger, something more meaningful.
Absolutely. And don't forget the personal reflection part.
Oh, yeah. The prep notes emphasize that a lot.
Because this isn't just an academic exercise, this is about you. How have relationships shaped your life, your learning journey?
So it's about taking all this knowledge and making it personal, showing how it resonates with you on a deeper level.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears a bit and zoom in on those 4 key themes from the notes. They're like different lenses for looking at relationships.
Okay, I like that analogy. So first up, personal relationship.
The bonds we form with family, friends, peers.
Yeah, that one feels pretty straightforward. We all have these relationships.
But how do they shape us? Think back to the giver, those characters, those relationships. How did they influence their choices, their values?
Or even the figures in your art assemblage.
Right. It's not just about describing those relationships. It's about analyzing their impact.
So going beyond the surface level.
Exactly. Okay, now let's tackle societal relationships.
Ooh, that sounds way more complex.
It is, but also super fascinating.
I'm intrigued.
Remember your humanities deep dive into the 1920s and 30s, all those historical events you explored, they weren't happening in a vacuum.
Right, like the Harlem Renaissance, the stock market crash?
Exactly. Think about the political tensions, economic crises, social changes, all swirling around at the same time. They were all intertwined, influencing each other, shaping the course of history.
It's like a chain reaction, almost one event triggering another and another.
Exactly. And that same principle applies to societies today. Think about the relationship between governments and citizens, between different cultures, between social movements and the status quo.
It's all connected.
It really is. Okay, now let's talk about something that's super relevant right now, environmental relationships.
Yeah, this one feels especially important these days.
Absolutely. We need to understand how we're connected to the natural world, how our actions impact the environment.
Like Mr. Martin's science class on photosynthesis.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we're part of this larger ecosystem, not separate from it.
And that our actions have consequences, both good and bad.
Right. Which brings us to our final theme, technological relationships.
Okay, this one feels a bit more abstract.
It might seem that way, but it's all around us. Think about how technology and data rely on connections to function.
Like those algorithms we talked about in computing.
Exactly. They're all about analyzing relationships within data to predict and make decisions.
So in a way, technology is learning to think in terms of relationships just like we do.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right? And it raises all sorts of questions about how technology shapes our lives and how we in turn shape technology.
It's a powerful relationship for sure, and one that's constantly evolving.
Okay, so we've got these 4 powerful themes all connected to this idea of relationships. And the prep notes offer some really practical tips on how to actually present all this.
Right, like how to use evidence effectively.
Engage the audience.
Answer those tough questions from the teachers.
Remember, the exit point isn't a test. It's your chance to shine, to showcase how much you've grown as learners and thinkers.
So be creative, be critical, and most importantly, be yourselves.
Let your passion for this topic shine through.
So much to think about, right? We've explored this big idea of relationships, dived into how each subject is tackling it, looked at those key themes.
And those practical tips from the prep notes.
Yeah, it's like we've given you this massive toolkit.
All the pieces you need to create something amazing.
But now what? What's the next step?
Well, think back to Mr. Martin's science class. Remember that example of symbiosis with the corals and zooxanthellae?
Oh yeah, that was fascinating.
It's a tiny little world hidden beneath the waves.
But it shows us something really important, right?
Exactly. Everything is connected, even in ways we might not expect.
So as you're prepping for your exit point, Keep looking for those connections.
Those hidden links between different ideas, different subjects, even your own personal experiences.
It's like becoming a relationship detective.
Yeah, uncovering those subtle connections that make the world so fascinating.
I love that. And remember, guys, the exit point isn't just about presenting information.
It's about telling a story.
Your story.
How have these relationships shaped your understanding of the world?
How have they shaped you?
Be bold, be creative, be yourselves.
Let your passion and insights shine through.
Can't wait to see what you come up with.
That's it for this deep dive. Good luck with your exit points, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
70 at 8.